Ukrainian President Zelensky set to address Senate lawmakers this morning as the Biden administration pushes Congress to provide billions more in military aid for the war against Russia, as Republicans aims to tie border security to the measure. Since Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine nearly 2 years ago, Congress has allocated $113 billion of aid to support the effort. Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton is in support of supporting Ukraine, but they got to be smarter about it. First things first, Senator, Republicans have made it clear, you included, border security has to be involved. What are you looking for?
Well, Brian, that's exactly right. Joe Biden seems to care more about other countries' borders than America's border. We care about both. We think that we can support Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan and rebuild our own military while also addressing the crisis at our southern border. I mean, just last week, we had days in which 12,000 illegal migrants crossed the border. Those are, as Ainsley said, just the ones we know about. So I just imagine the scale of that. I mean, Jay Johnson, Barack Obama's Homeland Security Secretary, said the system is overwhelmed with just 1,000 migrants a day.
Right.
If you had a week of 12,000 migrants every single day, it'd be almost as big as Fort Smith, Arkansas. So we have to address the problem at the border, which is driven primarily by the Biden administration's abuses of asylum and parole, allowing people into the country who have no legal right to be here. If we can address asylum and parole, that's the key to passing legislation that will not only help secure our own border, but help our allies protect themselves as well.
Right. And the thing is, right now, 27% of the country support President Biden's border policy. It's a disaster. Nobody's happy about it. This could be a life preserver for his political career and maybe his re-election campaign. And now Zelensky's here to pitch a cause that you support. You believe you want Ukraine to prevail, but you also believe this administration is responsible for the fact it hasn't. In which way?
Yeah, Brian, we always welcome foreign leaders to the United States Congress, and I support Ukraine. I don't support Joe Biden's Ukraine policy. For 2 years, President Biden pussyfooted around, and he didn't provide Ukraine with the weapons it needed to fight the war, to defend its own territory. And then he always flip-flopped 3 or 6 or 9 months later. But what did that delay mean? First, it meant that Ukraine doesn't have the weapons today that they needed to push back Russia. And second, it made it harder for Ukraine to push back Russia because it allowed Russia to dig in defensive lines in southern and eastern Ukraine. I mean, you hear a lot of anonymous sniping from the administration about how Ukraine didn't fight well in its most recent offensive. But that's because they didn't have the kind of long-range artillery and aircraft that we would use to fight such a war. It's called combined arms warfare. It's pretty hard to fight combined arms warfare when you don't have combined arms. So rather than armchair quarterbacking what Ukrainians on the front lines are doing to fight their own war in their own territory, President Biden should have been providing them the tools from the very beginning so this war wouldn't have lasted so long and been so costly and been so bloody for Ukraine.
Right. So the Ukrainian cause, they've wiped out 300,000 Russians. They fight like warriors. That's not your problem. Your problem is the pace in which we're arming them. We get them eventually what they need, but not enough. And we still haven't trained enough F-15 pilots. Senator Langford, who's leading this conversation on the Senate side, says we're not going to be able to get it done by Thursday or Friday of this week. So you guys are going home for vacation. That means nothing gets funded, nothing gets addressed. Just Merry Christmas?
Well, Brian, I regret that we're not going to pass legislation this month, last month, because we're in a crisis situation at our southern border. We need to close our border months ago. But also, Ukraine needs funding. Israel needs to be supported.
Yeah.
And we need to be watchful about the threats that China is posing towards Taiwan. But we're at this situation now, this impasse, because Democrats seem to care more about keeping our border open than they care about helping Ukraine get back to its old borders or help Israel protect its borders. Democrats have to recognize that the American people, while they support our friends overseas, are also appalled at the crisis at our own southern border and are insisting that we get control of it. Again, 12,000 migrants a day, and most of them, if you look at those videos that you're playing on Fox regularly, are not nursing mothers and infants. They are military-age males. That's why the FBI director has said the southern border is a matter of great concern for our national security.
And your Democratic mayor in New York City, your Democratic mayor in Chicago, your Democratic governor of Arizona, all sounding like you when it comes to border security. They could actually bring the country together and address something the whole nation needs addressed. Instead, it's sniping, and instead of cutting a deal that's so necessary. Thanks so much, Senator Tom Cotton. Appreciate it. Look forward to getting the after action report after you speak to the president of Ukraine. Appreciate it.